Why is the world's fourth largest economy teetering on the edge of bankruptcy? And how could this looming financial catastrophe spill over into the United States? In order to explain just how close Japan is to the brink of disaster, we need to do a little historical recap. In the 1980s, the Japanese economy was booming and had grown to rival even that of the United States. But beginning in 1990, Japan experienced one of the worst economic crashes in all of history. And this crisis was so bad that economists and historians call it the lost decades. That's decades, plural. In order to combat this economic downturn, politicians began turning on the money printers at the Bank of Japan. This strategy, known as quantitative easing, involves creating money to buy government bonds. The idea was to inject this newly created money into the economy with the goal of lifting Japan out of a recession. Sounds simple enough, but it isn't. It's actually incredibly difficult because the more money you print, the less it's actually worth. Unless, of course, it's backed by corresponding economic growth. But the Japanese economy has been stagnant since 1994. And with a shrinking economy, prices have been consistently falling. So the country's central bank kept printing for over 30 years. And with each new crisis, the process only accelerated. Case in point, since 2020, Japan's money supply has surged by more than 200 trillion yen. So, where did all of this money go? And the answer is government bonds. As a result, Japan's debt has ballooned to over 260% of its GDP, making it the highest in the developed world. Simply put, the Japanese government owes more than twice what it brings in through taxes each year. And with an aging population and shrinking workforce, there's almost no way to pay this down. This means that while the Bank of Japan continued to print hundreds of trillions of yen to boost the economy, it also had to keep interest rates at zero or even below zero in order to make sure the government didn't go bankrupt. But no country can play this game of musical chairs forever. While initially Japan experienced years of deflation, it's finally getting the sort of inflation that politicians actually wanted. And that's the problem. The value of the yen is in free fall compared to other currencies like the dollar, and the Bank of Japan cannot raise interest rates to put a stop to this because if they do, it will trigger a nationwide debt crisis. But as the yen continues to lose value, the cost of goods and services continue to rise. But as the largest foreign holder of American debt, Japan has one final tool it can use to try and tackle inflation and defend its own currency without triggering a nationwide debt crisis. It can sell the U.S. treasuries it owns and use the profits to buy yen. And this is how the looming disaster in Japan could spill over into the United States. Because if Japan continues to offload more than $1 trillion worth of treasuries, it will send interest rates higher in the U.S., making it more expensive to service America's own massive federal debt. Ultimately, Japan's looming debt and inflation crisis was almost entirely brought about by politicians who thought they could print their way to prosperity. The tragedy is this crisis has the potential to only accelerate America's own debt and inflation problems, which itself was brought about by politicians who also thought they could print their way to prosperity. The bottom line is this. As much as politicians would like to believe that there is some sort of magical shortcut they can take to increase prosperity or ward off bad investments, there isn't one. And political manipulation will only make it worse. And perhaps this is why Friedrich Hayek once warned that the curious task of economics is to demonstrate to men how little they really know about what they imagine they can design. Do you have a why you would like us to answer? Go into the link in the description and pose your question, and maybe the next Why Minutes will be dedicated to you.